What's going on, guys? I've been getting a lot of DMs about my time in the military. It's been brought up a couple times on different people's channels. Lojo's talked about it a little bit. On Norms, obviously, said it a couple times. Me and Yak Pack have shared like some stories about our time in the military. However, it's very different from all the other like military story videos from like all the other YouTubers that you guys see. A lot of them were in the Army, which is a very different world than what I was in. So, just a quick little backstory. I was in the Navy. My job, or MOS as other people would call it, I was a torpedoman, and I was stationed on submarine. I was stationed on two submarines, the Greenville and the Columbia being my first. There's no way to describe like the difference in life that Yak Pack and all those guys that you've heard these stories of, and Lojo being in the Army. When we share stories together, it's like we were all in the military, but the worlds are just different. You don't see the same things, you don't experience the same things. And to be quite honest with you, even though I was in the Navy, submarines are basically their whole world, not even really in the Navy. Like, we operate on just a completely different, not a completely different set of rules, but like we operate completely different than regular, like big Navy would. So yeah, I guess I'll just dive into it. Straight out of high school, college didn't work out for me at the time. I needed to figure out something to do with my life, and my dad was in the Navy for a little while, and I was sitting around. I was working at Zaxby's, funny enough, because in the same town that Norm was working at Zaxby's, I think almost at the same exact time. We were working at two different Zaxby's, and my dad grabbed me one day when I came home, and he was like, "Come with me." We went straight to the recruiter's office, and he dropped me off, and he was like, "Talk to him." So I talked to him. My recruiter ended up being a torpedoman on a submarine himself, Dusty Criddle. Shouts out if you're watching this, Dusty. Yeah, talked me into volunteering for submarines, and that was that. Went off to boot camp in Chicago, Illinois. It was the first time I ever saw snow was in Chicago, like real snow. I've seen fake snow. And I remember one time actually in boot camp, first time I ever touched snow, we were marching outside doing drill, and I was in the back because I'm a little bit taller, and I took my glove off because I didn't think anyone saw me because we were going right next to this like wall where there was snow, and I wanted to like actually feel the snow. And I remember no one's gonna see me, and I took my glove off and touched the snow. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, we got beat pretty bad for that. Everyone hated me that day because we got beat in the snow. I thought it was cool, Florida boy, seeing snow, getting to work out in the snow, push-ups and whatnot, but whatever. Immediately after that, probably, I think it was 2 days max after I graduated boot camp, I went to Groton, Connecticut for submarine school. And my A school or tech school, AIT, whatever some of the other military folks like call it. So I was there for about 9 months going through submarine school, and then my torpedoman A school. Met a bunch of great guys. For a Florida boy, actually, like living up there in the snow and everything, it was completely different. And so while I was in A school, I met just a bunch of cool guys. One guy in particular, he would end up becoming my best friend, and I actually just was in his wedding, and we actually met while we were playing basketball, and he was talking, and I know I'm quiet on camera, guys, but like I'm very competitive, and so I like to run my mouth too. And me and him, we were always very competitive, and we didn't know that we were going to be friends at the time. So for like 9 months, it was our friendship was just like strictly playing basketball against each other, never with each other. So after that, it came time to like get our orders for the first time, which is a big thing for all like new people in the military. It's like, okay, where am I going to spend the next 3 to 4 years of my life? Like, where's my journey going to go? And I'll never forget, our A school was really small. It was like 9 people. So I was top 2 in the class, so that means I had basically first choice of where I wanted to go. So you get a wish list. I got 3 picks. I picked Hawaii #1, Guam I think I put second, and San Diego third. All I knew was I wanted to be West Coast, and I wanted to be by the beach and by the ocean. Your boy loves the water, hence why I went in the Navy. And why I'm always in the water, jumping in the water, catching fish for everybody. Yeah, so that day came. I'll never forget that day. I called my dad before I even opened it. I got the orders, and I went back to my barracks room. I got on the phone with my dad, and I opened them with him, and it said Hawaii, and I mean, it was one of the most euphoric moments in my life, knowing that I was about to go spend the next 4 years of my life in paradise. And so that's where the journey really truly begins. Fly off to Hawaii like a week later. I get there, and it was a culture shock, to say the least. It goes going straight from your schooling and boot camp to the real military is completely different. I showed up, funny enough, or weirdly enough, I show up, one of the first people I meet on the submarine, actually the second person I meet on the submarine, he was standing topside watch, and he has to check me on because I'm not technically on board the submarine yet. There's a whole check-in process. And he asked me my name, and I was like, oh, my name's blah, 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 Devin Gibson. He asked me where I'm from, and I told him from Tallahassee, Florida. He was like, no. He was like, oh, well, did you know Miss So-and-so? I'm not going to say their names. And I said, yeah, I knew her. She was right next to my class. Like, she taught right next to my Latin class. And he goes, well, that's my mom. I went to high school with this kid here in Tallahassee, Florida. Never seen him in my life. I went to a pretty big high school. My freshman class had, I think, just over 900 people in it. My freshman class. So, yeah, my high school is pretty big. Yeah, that was my first. I was like, oh wow, small world. So like, me and him literally went to high school together and never met each other. And then we ended up meeting each other out in Hawaii, being on a submarine together on USS Columbia. Like a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I did my first underway, which is where the submarine goes underwater. And I talk about another moment I'll never forget. I'll never forget watching them secure the hatch for the first time. As I'm sure a lot of you other submariners out there will never forget that first time you went down. Definitely a very surreal moment. Kind of understanding how serious your job is. You're just locked away from everyone. Like, what you do isn't, the only people that know about it are the people that are there. And I know a lot of people in the military, different ranges, say that. But truly on a submarine, the sensitivity of it, the only people that know about it are the people that are there, the stuff we do. So it was really cool experience. So on the Columbia is actually where we're going to backtrack a little bit. The guy I played basketball with ended up becoming my best friend. Is actually where we met. They put me in a barracks room, and I thought I was going to have a barracks room all to myself for the longest. For like the first month I was in Hawaii, I had my own room. It was nice. I didn't have to worry about having a roommate or any of that. And I had a note on my door when I came home one day that said, basically, pack all your go to this room. Well, he came back in the room that day, and we both did like a, huh. So, yeah, from that moment on, me and him were basically like inseparable. The kid became like family to me, away from family. A lot of you guys in the military understand that. There's always like that one person that you meet or share that whole experience with. It is just, that bond is just different. I did a couple underways, nothing crazy. We did a couple of like small deployments, not like big deployments, like workups and stuff. Got qualified on submarines, got qualified torpedoman. Because once you get on a submarine, this is where it's a little bit different. And a lot of branches do this. You get a warfare pin. On a submarine, it's kind of, I mean, it's not kind of, it's the biggest deal on a submarine to get your dolphins. It basically just entails that I trust you to save my life if shit goes down. So I got qualified. And in doing so, not only do you have to be an expert at your job, you have to be an expert at everyone else's job too, in case, I know it's very like gruesome, in case they all die and like some tragic thing happens. You have to understand how to, the basics of like nuclear mechanics or freaking what goes on in the kitchen, like where everything happens in the kitchen, the navigation system, driving the submarine, sonar. Like you have to know the very, very basics of all the other stuff on top of being an expert at your job. So you go through it's supposed to take a year, max is what they give you. I was able to do mine pretty fast because we were underway. So I did mine in 4.5, 5 months. I think is when I actually got pinned. So yeah, it was really cool. I love my dolphins. I actually gave them to my dad. They're my most prized possession from the Navy, from being on a submarine. So and at the time, our torpedo division, it was huge. We had so many people that were qualified, like everything in the torpedo room, that when we were on deployment, like there was really nothing for me to do because I was the new guy, even though like I was qualified to do the jobs. Obviously the more experienced guys are going to do that. So I went and they were like, all right, we got to do something. And they were like, go up to control room. And this happens to most young guys as well in the Navy. You get qualified helmsman, which means you're driving the submarine. So for the first year and a half, I was driving the submarine on all our deployments, all our underways, along with a bunch of other guys. So got to experience the control room, like everything you see in the movies. It goes dark, there's red lights, screens everywhere, and you're sitting here driving basically like an underwater airplane. Super, super cool, very important job. The most nervous I've ever been is when I drove it by myself for the first time. So like understanding that I had everyone's life in my hand and a couple $1 billion submarine at my control was a lot of responsibility for a 19, 20-year-old kid. Yeah, so I did a couple deployments, did a bunch of really cool missions that I wish I could tell you guys about. Like stuff we did, and then on my second boat on the Greenville, that boat did one of the coolest missions there. We got a handwritten letter from, at the time, the president that was flown down to us to go do whatever it was. And I'll never forget, they all called us into the galley, and a very, very high-ranking official came down and flew onto the submarine and read us all in and whatnot. So that was incredibly cool for me to do that mission, be a part of that. Shouts out to all you guys. If any of you guys are watching, that was a fun deployment. That was my longest time underwater without coming up. So that mission was 51 days straight without coming up, which I know some of you guys are probably like, holy cow, like that's a lot. I have friends who've done 170 something days underwater without coming up. And like that's no communication or hardly any communication with the outside world. Like it's not like you have Facebook or Instagram or text messages. Like when you're on deployment underwater, like you basically takes a full week to have a conversation. So you send out an email, 3 days later it gets sent off. 3 days later you come back up, receive the response to that email. So where you're sitting at a week already, just for me to say something to you and then to receive back what you said. Then I have to respond back to you. You get sent off 3 days later, and it just keeps going. So the conversations with the outside world are very important to guys on a submarine. It kind of keeps you mentally stable in an environment where not a lot of people can stay mentally stable. The culture on submarines, I love it to death, but it's very toxic, very, very toxic. Luckily, both my submarines had groups of guys on there that were looking out for each other, and we're always there for each other. So it's not the case for all submarines. Guys try to kill themselves, hurt themselves, hurt others, get home, and the lifestyle just was too much, let's say, for their wives. Guys would come home, everything's gone out of their house, no word from their wife, bank accounts dry, kids aren't there. They literally show back up after deployment and they'd have nothing. It's a different life I could go on forever and ever. This video would be super, super long if I did that. But shouts out to all you guys that are still out there doing that, man. I know y'all don't get a lot of recognition. Like, people who still do that for 20 years, y'all are a different breed. Y'all are some of America's best. So, like, shouts out to y'all. Yeah, so did that deployment. Came back. On that deployment, we went to Guam multiple times. I've basically been in Guam 2.5, 3 months of my life just from deployments. So good thing I didn't get stationed there, because once I was there, I was like, wow, I'm super glad I didn't get this place. I lucked out. I love Guam, but no, it's the hottest place in the world. I'm not joking. Guam is like, I want you guys to think about the most humid place you've ever been in your life. If you guys have ever been to Florida in August when it's 110 degrees and 200% humidity, well, Guam is 300 degrees, 500% humidity. It's obnoxious. So super glad I actually did not get there, even though I wanted it. Yeah, so did that deployment. And actually on that deployment is when I decided that I was going to get out of the Navy. And the reason for that, for the longest time, I was like, you know, I love this. Like, I'm going to do it. It's just so much fun. We can do all this cool stuff. After a while, the lifestyle started wearing on you. And as you get older, you start thinking about different things. And I knew that I wanted to have a family one day. I wanted to go to college. Now that I was older, I was more mature to handle it, like to understand it. I really needed that time in my life to grow as an individual, as a person, and like as a man, find myself. And it definitely did that. So we were actually underwater. I was talking with one of my senior chiefs. He was getting ready to retire. He had done like 22 or 23 years. And I asked him, just out of curiosity, because I was thinking about this for myself. I was like, Senior Chief, how many years have you spent underwater since you've been in the Navy? And he said a lot. And he sat there and actually thought about it. He did the math. And in 22 or 23 years, however long it was, he spent 12 and a half years cumulatively underwater. Obviously not straight, but like he spent 12 and a half years of his life underwater, away from his kids, away from his family. He looked at me, he's like, I missed 12 years of my children and my family's life because of this. And I'll never forget, in that moment, I was like, it's not like, I love it, but that's not what's important to me. So I decided to get out of the military. A couple years later, got out and moved to England with my then wife. Yes, someone married me. I don't know why, but she did. Cool girl, love her to death. Just things didn't work out. We were young. So, I mean, if you're watching this, no hard feelings, I promise. I mean, that's really the military story, and then kind of how my story goes from there is after me and her did not work out, I moved back home to Tallahassee, and that year, maybe, I think a little later on that year is when I first met Norm, and we were fishing for the first time, and this is kind of where this journey that we're having right now started. It took a bunch of time, and as y'all know, I moved back off to Hawaii last year for a job, and here we are. Just kind of how life comes full circle. I wouldn't change it for anything. I wish that I could go into more detail about, some of the missions and stuff and some of the things we did, but especially on a platform like this, I cannot. So yeah, it was a wild time sharing bunks with 3 dudes. Pause. Not at the same time. Guys just going crazy. Everyone dealing with emotional issues, dealing with the pressure, the stress of being on the submarine. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I could talk forever, but this video would be really long. I could tell you about the time that I burned all my first week on the submarine. I burned all my Torpedoman's PT gear in the dryer because I wasn't paying attention. Caught the dryer on fire. So there's that. That was really fun. It was not fun. Do not recommend that. Had to rebuy everyone's PT gear first week on board. If you're at a point, and I can only speak as now that I'm almost 30, as I'm still a young man, but I remember what it was like as a young man trying to figure out what you want to do. You don't know. You don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't know the right answer. You want to do what's best for yourself. You want to make your family proud. You want to, be respected with what you do. I would say, especially if college is not, ideal for you at the time for whatever reason. Maybe you're just not ready. Maybe college just isn't for you. Some people, that's just what it is. For me, I just wasn't ready. I would highly encourage going into the military and growing as a man and finding yourself and experiencing what all life has to offer, because the world is not whatever town you're in. It's not the little city, the little high school you grew up in. It's not, the world is vast. The world has so much to offer, so much culture, so much knowledge, that you will grow leaps and bounds as an individual. If you guys knew me 10 years ago when I was in the military, y'all would be like, there's no way this is Devin. There's no way. So yeah, it does a great job of helping you kind of find direction in your life and discipline, and just teaching you very valuable life lessons at a very rapid rate. So a lot of people don't get that at that rapid of a rate, which is why I believe that it's a very good thing. Yeah, so with that said, oh, someone's making a surprise visit. Hey, Luna, you want to be on camera? Oh, hi, you're the star of the show. I know it. Everyone loved you in the other video when you were sleeping. I'm surprised you're not sleeping now. What do you want? She has to be the center of attention all the time. Yeah, so with that said, that's kind of just, where I'll leave it. It's a very quick synopsis of my time in the military. If I wanted to keep this video under an hour, that's kind of how I have to do it. I can't really go into too much detail about it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, learned a little bit about me. Let me know down in the comments if you kind of like videos like this, kind of getting to know me a little bit more, and maybe we can do a couple of them every now and then. Maybe when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll do a live, YouTube live, answer most of your guys' questions live. Or we'll do a live and I'll do whatever you guys are commenting me to do, I'll go do. So as far as fishing, nothing crazy, because you guys are wild. Yeah, so with that said, thank you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe, and you guys just have a blessed day, man.